Harper had been warned by her best friend, don't make unnecessary journeys, and don't date strangers off the internet. Well, Harper didn't listen to any of that. She was spontaneous, she was impulsive, and she met the perfect guy on Tinder. Who knew a human's bite could be so dangerous? She had been dating him for a year now. He was the man of her dreams, the perfect gentleman. He was also a big foodie like her, always whining and dining her the way that she deserved. On that particular weekend, they wanted to keep things low-key. Steve's family had a cabin up in the Smoky Mountains, and that was their favorite spot for staycations. She even packed a little surprise. She had the sense that this trip was going to be special. Who knows? Maybe he'll pop the question while they hiked. Everyone had told them to cancel their trip. But Steve was a seasoned hiker, and he knew the Smoky Mountains well. But something was different. An area that had seen a handful of disappearances in the last decade was suddenly seeing one every few weeks. First, they had heard on the news that 2 young tourists never made it to their checkpoint. A search party went out, but they were never found. Soon after, it was a man on his own taking a solo trip. All that was found by the search party was a single shoe with a little blood on the ground nearby. So the general consensus was that he was eaten by a bear. People kept going missing. Men, women, children. It didn't seem to matter. Fewer and fewer people were willing to take the risk of venturing out there, especially with all the conspiracy theories popping up online. It didn't help that the media had started digging up the story that started it all. Back in the 60s, when little Dennis Martin had disappeared, he had been less than 15 feet from his parents when it happened. He was hiding, about to jump out and scare them, and then he was gone. No one ever found a trace of him, but some nearby campers reported seeing a disheveled man running through the woods, trying to hide from them like a wild thing, and speculation about what that meant had flushed the state. But that's why Harper's friends had started to make a fuss when she mentioned she was going to the mountains that weekend. She decided to go anyway. You know, for a romantic getaway. They arrived at the cabin, and Harper immediately made herself at home. They were there just a few weeks ago, so everything was right where she left them. While Steve was cooking, Harper put on one of her favorite horror movies, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and slipped into something more appropriate for the evening. Do I look good enough to eat? Steve had cooked a lovely steak dinner, and they were at the dining table, enjoying each other's company over a bottle of wine. So, what do you want to do this weekend? Jacuzzi? Hike? I'm fine doing anything, even just this. All of a sudden, there was a loud bang on the door. What was that? Harper asked, frightened. Probably a wolf. We are in the middle of nowhere after all. Don't mind it. Harper was concerned. She lost her appetite. The added sound effects of the movie's chainsaw and screams made her paranoid. Relax. Here, let me pour you another glass. Cheers to the weekend, my dear. Harper woke up groggy. When she opened her eyes, Steve was gone. She didn't remember falling asleep. She tried to move her body, but she was paralyzed and couldn't even utter a word. She lay there for what felt like an eternity, wondering what the hell happened. Maybe she drank too much. Maybe this was a game, but something kept dragging her back to reality. She didn't mean to dwell on the worst-case scenario as she lay there helpless, that she was drugged, but it was the only thing that made sense. Slowly, she could move her fingers and toes again. Then, she was able to roll off the bed and search the house. No one was there. So she started calling out Steve's name. No answer. Until she heard distant growls and glass shattering. She panicked, thinking the wolf got inside, and the door suddenly opened. Steve entered the room, shocked to see her up, and tried to calm her down. Harper, I'm sorry. I can't let you go. You'll run away and I need you. We need you. She was terrified. The words sounded hollow even in her own head. Everything felt wrong. I think it's about time you met my family. His family? Right now? It was all so bizarre. Then there was a strange smell. Harper sniffed the air as the smell got stronger and stronger by the second. It was the smell of sweat and rotting meat. She had just enough time to feel a tendril of fear wrap around her heart before she was coughing, gagging on it. I was hoping it wouldn't come down to this, but my dad, he hasn't eaten in weeks. Tourist numbers are down, and you're all we have. In an instant, Steve grabbed her. The tranquilizer wasn't supposed to wear off for another few hours. I wanted to save you the pain. You just need an arm or a leg, and we can forget this ever happened. She was choking so hard, she barely noticed when the source of the stench revealed itself. Dad, not yet. She needs to be asleep. I don't want her to feel anything. Harper looked up and saw a man. Well, sort of. It was hunched over and dirty, dressed in scraps of rags. But that did nothing to disguise how big it was. If it had been standing tall, it would have been at least 7 feet tall. And that wasn't mentioning the muscles that stood out all over its body. The stench continued to roll off of it in waves. The thing was standing a few feet away from her. Its only movement, the steady rise and fall of his chest as he panted, mouth slightly open. Harper felt herself freeze. She couldn't stop staring at the creature, and their eyes met. Harper could see the thing looking all over the room, nostrils flaring as it scented the air, and she suddenly felt very, very cold and even more exposed. As her heart started racing. Stop looking at her like that. You promised you would only eat on my terms. The creature pounced towards Harper, but Steve got in the way. In an instant, the two were fighting. Harper watched as Steve's dad tackled him to the ground with superhuman strength. Then it bit his neck and started feasting. Harper wanted to puke, but she knew this was her only chance at survival. She managed to grab the tranquilizer and sneak out the room. She found the car keys, her purse, and made her exit. But as she grabbed the front door knob, she heard the dad. It was crying hysterically as it ran towards the door, its face drenched in blood. It looked right at her with pain and anger, and she knew she was its dessert. Another split second of hesitation went by as her body tremored. Then she exited out the door into the darkness. The sudden movement triggered the creature's predatory instinct to chase. So she flung her purse as hard as she could at the creature's face. It bought her a few seconds, making the thing stumble, but she only made it a few feet before she heard a feral howl behind her. Harper tried to tune out everything as she ran towards the car. She wasn't a track star, but it turned out that raw terror could be extremely motivating. She was so focused and almost at the car that she didn't even notice the tree stump until she was tripping over it. Her body twisted in midair, all that momentum being converted, and she hit the ground hard. A grunt escaped her, along with all of her air. And for a moment, she felt like she couldn't get her lungs to cooperate and fill back up. That moment was all the creature needed. It pounced on top of her, reaching out with strong, gnarled fingers, grabbing whatever it could, and putting all its weight on top of her. Harper's face was still pressed into the dirt, so she felt, rather than saw, as the monster got closer to her flesh, snarling and snapping, hot drool dripping down to her skin. Oh, no. She thought, I am not getting eaten. Not happening. She managed to pull the tranquilizer out of her pocket and stab it. It yelped in pain, then opened its mouth and bit down on her arm. The thing's teeth were dull, like a normal human's, so it took a massive amount of force for it to tear into Harper's arm, which was excruciatingly painful. Slowly, the creature was hit with drowsiness, and Harper was able to buck the thing off of her. She wasn't sure what she did. She just stirred and shifted from underneath the creature until she had enough leverage to shake loose from its grip and scrambled to her feet. She stood up, breathing a sigh of relief when her arm was only seeping blood, not spurting it. She cast one more glance at the beast, which was fast asleep. Then she noticed the chainsaw next to the tree stump. In an instant, she grabbed the tool and turned it on. She cut off the creature's leg. Then Harper dropped it and ran to her car. Harper didn't stop driving, and she didn't turn until her feet were back on concrete and she was surrounded by the signs of civilization.